Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Warwick F1 show. We have just finished our first triple header of the year. I think it's the first triple header of the year, with ending with Silverstone, and we are immediately going into another double header, starting with the Hungaroring. We are heading into a track which is very different from, I'd say, the tracks that we've just been to, and should maybe look for a shift up of the grids. A lot of low speed corners and lots of curb riding, as we were just talking about, which could help or hinder some different teams. Well, I'll come to you guys first. I'm joined by Will Kingswood and Chinmay as usual. And what exactly, I guess, have we got to look forward to? Obviously, there's going to be perhaps some changing up of the teams. We mentioned that maybe Ferrari might be slightly helped by the change in track conditions or track style of the track as such, being the more low-speed corners compared to maybe Spain or Silverstone, which has a lot of focus on high-speed corners, and also maybe hindering Red Bull. We did actually sense that. So what kind of teams do we think are going to maybe benefit from coming into the Hungaroring?
Yeah, so I mean, the Hungaroring, I think the first race in Hungary was 1986. It's been a staple on the calendar ever since then, and I think it's one where strategy kind of really plays a role in making the race a good one. We've seen different strategic options back in 2019. The Hamilton's pitting from behind Verstappen to try and catch him on fresher tyres. We've had very good races there in the past as well. 2021 springs to mind. Obviously, the famous image of Lewis Hamilton again being the only driver to start as everyone else has dived into the pits. 2014 as well. Daniel Ricciardo taking his second win of that year. It's a little bit hit and miss, but I think the fact it's so narrow, it's so winding, it's a good one. It's more of a driver's track, I'd say. And as for the teams, I think that will do well. I think McLaren seem to be a team where their car is good at every track that they go to, so I think you'll see them up there. I think you'll see a resurgence of Ferrari. I think they've had a bit of bad luck over the last few races, but this track should suit them a bit better. And then maybe some teams that might not do as well. I think if the current weather, I think it's very hot in the south of Europe at the moment. If that current weather lasts, you may see Mercedes fall back a little bit, their car kind of performing better in colder conditions. And the track is quite bumpy, and bumps are a thing that Red Bull have struggled with, but you can never count out Max Verstappen from being up there. So I think it's got all the kind of recipe for a good race. And we'll just have to wait and see what the teams come up with.
Yeah, certainly. And it's interesting you touch on Mercedes there, because even though I guess Mercedes are typically, Jimmy, if we come to you, Mercedes are typically, even though maybe the car doesn't suit them as such, or suit the track conditions as such, as we saw them performing very well in the cold conditions at Silverstone, it's a track that they like, isn't it? And it's certainly maybe one that experience will. Could you see them being carried through a bit by their experience and how much they've obviously liked this track from previous years as such? And because they are 2 for 2 Mercedes, and is it realistic? Well, I think it's realistic for at least the predictions that we're about to do, that maybe they're on for a third victory if there's anything to go by.
Well, first of all, it depends on whether the weather is for because obviously when we're recording this, we don't know what the forecast is going to be.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks, 2 weeks
if
in
it's
advance.
going to be
Not
warmer,
probably that accurate at the moment, but yeah.
Yeah. To be fair, if we're looking warmer conditions, then maybe Mercedes will drop back a little bit. Maybe the likes of McLaren and Red Bull will be able to. Well, we said Red Bull. I mean, Verstappen's gonna be able to compete. But yeah, I guess. But then again, we said Mercedes have a good history of this track. Lewis Hamilton definitely has a good history of this track. So yeah, I don't think we should count them out any at all here. So we'll only be able to see when we reach qualifying and then the race.
Certainly, it should offer up some good racing. I guess we hope, as Will Kingswood said, it can be a little hit and miss in the past. Is there anything else we're missing that we can expect from the Hungaroring? There hasn't really been many changes to the track and the dynamics of it and the corners at all, really, as I guess you can expect with how Spain had some modifications to it a couple of years ago. So it's as it was really, has always been in a way. And so, is there anything else we've missed, or is there?
I think it's mainly just the fact that we're actually coming into a race weekend now, and we have no clue who's going to be the quickest car. And I quite like that. It's going back to kind of the old 2010, 2012 days when one team would rock up and be the quickest, and then next week someone else would rock up and be the quickest. And I think at the moment it's now very much down to the drivers, and they've got to perform. And at the end of the day, though, the people in the cockpit are going to be the ones deciding the result. The result we'll see a week on Sunday.
It has been a while, really, hasn't it, since we've been in this position of probably genuinely not knowing who's going to win. I mean, certainly not since 2020, probably 2021, where you only had two drivers. But I'd say now at the moment, you've maybe got between at least four, where you'd say Verstappen, Norris, Hamilton, and Russell. And so
I don't think you can count Piastri out of that either.
Yeah, Piastri. I'd certainly love to see him get his first race win. I thought we even might have seen it at Silverstone before he got unlucky with that pit stop. So it's a nice position to be in before 2026, where it might be ruined again. But
but it does make predictions pretty difficult.
Well, as we'll come on to our predictions now, this is actually, am I correct in saying that this might be the first weekend where Verstappen has not been picked by the first person to pick?
Yeah.
Certainly in a while.
Yes.
It's the first weekend since, I believe, Kim May's epic meltdown in Brazil 2023, where he had Verstappen. He could pick Verstappen P1 and then didn't.
Thanks for reminding me.
Was that a 0 point week?
I think it was a 1 point. It was 1 or 2 points, but it was so low.
Week.
How'd you get 1 or 2 points from a top five?
No, it was a top three then.
I think it was top three.
I was top three back then. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, that was back from before my time.
Yeah, no, I just went for it completely.
Yeah, so we'll move on to those predictions now, and it's me to pick. I'm going to be covering for Will Biddles this weekend. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here to join us. And if you don't know already, then we basically do like we say a snake kind of method where you can't pick the same person as your first place as compared to everyone else, and we take it in turns of who gets to pick first, and it's fallen to me or Will Biddles. And as mentioned, I'm not going to go with Verstappen P1. I think that actually Mercedes might be the quickest car on the grid on Sunday, at least up there with McLaren. But I think that once again, like in Silverstone, Mercedes' experience, especially around this track, will carry through. We'll see how that prediction goes. I could look like, it's one of those ones where I could look like an absolute idiot, or I could look like an absolute mastermind at predictions. We'll see how it goes. Most likely the former, but I'm going to say George Russell P1. I had to pick between one of the two Mercedes. I think Russell is on for another win. I do rate him quite highly as a driver. And actually, now I'm reading this, I realise that I've gone with this. I'm going for a Mercedes 1-2. So Hamilton P2. We'll see how that lasts. I certainly think that both Mercedes will be up there in the top five. Not sure about a 1-2, but hopefully we'll see that happen. I think I put Verstappen as P3. I think, again, like Silverstone, he might just lack pace in the car, especially if it's cold conditions, as we said, like similar to Silverstone. and with the curb riding that we said with before. Norris P4 and then Sainz P5. I think after I went with Leclerc last weekend and I realised I should have done that and remained faithful in Sainz as I had done at the start of the season. And so I've gone back to him now. I think he will be the sole Ferrari up there in the top 5. Who is next to pick? Is it?
It should be Chinmay.
It should be me.
As it was Will Kingswood picking first last week. Yes.
So yeah, okay. So my predictions, I've gone for a Norris win. I do reckon McLaren might be the fastest. I'm just counting on the conditions being hot. But yeah, so I've gone for Norris, Verstappen, Piastri, Hamilton, Leclerc. So again, I thought I'd go for a bit of a mishmash. I do feel Ferrari can be a bit more competitive at this track. Again, this is going to be all about strategy. So I am keeping myself very optimistic for McLaren and Ferrari. So yeah, my 1 pointer, I just got a normal at least 7 teams in Q3. It's a fairly standard 1 pointer. My 2 pointer is going to be that Ricciardo out-qualifies Tsunoda. It's not something he's done a lot. So, yeah.
Yeah.
To be fair, it has with recently Ricciardo has actually been doing either Ricciardo's been doing better or Ricciardo or Tsunoda's been dropping off. So it's certainly not a bad prediction to get in there. I suppose we might say that's never going to happen at the start of the season, but it's definitely a possibility.
Yep. And my 3-pointer, as if you watched the previous episode, we talked about a certain driver's form. I have said that Perez will lose to both Williams once again. So, yeah, I have. To be fair,
I don't even think you really need to watch the last episode to understand that. I think you just need to watch a race this season to understand that. But
I'm trying to plug in continuity here.
That's a good point. If you haven't seen our Britain review, then you should absolutely go and see that. But yes, I'm sure a lot of you probably do know that by now of Perez not being on the best form.
Retirement counts as a loss, right? But they got to retire before Perez has got to retire before any Williams retires.
So he retires before Logan Sargent crashes into a barrier off of his own accord. What you're saying?
Not in those words, because I think I like Logan.
No. But if Perez retires before, if Perez, it also counts if Perez retires before, before either Williams. Yeah, I think that's fair enough.
This is when Perez hits Albon, and we suddenly have to work out.
We have to work who retires. But yeah, that's going to be maybe if it's the same as that, then we'll call it quits. But I don't know. I'll just quickly do my 1, 2, and 3 point predictions. I realised I forgot to do those. So quite similarly to what we've just said, I will say that Perez does not reach Q3 as my 1 point prediction. Then I'm going to say as my 2 point prediction, I'm trying to be creative here. I'm going to say the person who flies the checkered flag is going to be a musician of some sort. And then for my 3 point prediction, I'm saying, again, sticking with a bit of a Perez theme, a car goes upside down because it was Perez that went upside down 1 year at Hungary. I can't remember. Was it 2014? I think 2014. Yes, it was Perez goes upside down. And I think that a car is going to go upside down again some point in this race, perhaps a bit of lap 1 carnage. But that's also my 1, 2, and 3 point prediction. And Will Kingswood.
So I've been left in a weird situation here, in which Verstappen is available, and I am the third person to pick.
You could pick Verstappen two weeks in a row, which probably hasn't happened yet on this.
No, it's not, and I'm going to. And I've realised having heard Chinmay's top 5, that mine is almost identical. Because I've gone Verstappen P1, Norris P2, and then Piastri, Hamilton, and Leclerc 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So it might actually, now that I look at it, it's just apart from the top 2 that it's just changed around. Is this like you two forming some sort of alliance against Will Biddles as Will is out in front? I'm 3 points behind both of you, or 3 and 4 points behind. So
Yeah.
this is not a good idea for me, but I'm gonna stick with it. Then
Okay.
for my 1 point prediction, I've said there will be no surprises in the top seven I didn't add, but for quali. So no, for the race.
For the race,
So
okay.
no, and Perez doesn't count as a surprise.
Okay.
Or
Fair
does he
enough.
count as a surprise? Is he a
Top
surprise?
7.
Yeah,
I'd
because I
say.
think Perez will be 8th.
I mean, it's a 1 point prediction, so I'd allow that. I think Perez would be a surprise for anywhere above that.
Okay, yeah. We'll this if it comes to it, we'll see how it goes.
We'll see. We'll get into a lot of discussion of that.
Then for my
Maybe on the next episode.
for my 2 pointer, I've gone for double Aussie points. So I've said both Australian drivers will score points, so both Ricciardo and Piastri. And then for my 3 pointer, I have said there will be a 2019 strat repeat and it will be successful. So back in 2019, Verstappen was leading the race, Hamilton was behind him, and then Hamilton pits for new tyres, makes up the margin and catches Verstappen and overtakes him with 3 laps to go. And I think that a driver will do that again and will be successful at it. They'll be able to go from the position behind, pit, and then make up that gap and take the position ahead of them.
Very interesting. So we're obviously predicting that there's perhaps going to be a lot of tyre wear that's going to be coming into and playing a factor in the race if like in 2019 a driver is able to make up that deficit. But I think we'll leave it there. I think we've covered our predictions, and there's not, I think, much to discuss in regards to the Hungaroring. It's certainly delivered on occasions before, and let's hope that we can see a good show again. Although it will be difficult to beat the one that we've already seen. Again, if you haven't checked out our review to what was a great race at Silverstone, then you definitely should after this episode. But until then, I think that is pretty much it for our Hungary preview. So thank you very much, Will and Chinmay, for joining me. And until next time, goodbye.